So is Ketanji Brown Jackson, a name that even Joe Biden has trouble pronouncing, one of the top legal minds in the entire country? We certainly hope so. Biden's right. Appointing her is one of his gravest constitutional duties. So it might be time for Joe Biden to let us know what Ketanji Brown Jackson's LSAT score was. What the hell did she do in the LSATs? Why wouldn't he tell us that? That would settle the question conclusively as to whether she's a once-in-a-generation legal talent, the next learned hand. It would seem like Americans in a democracy have a right to know that and much more before giving her a lifetime appointment, but we didn't hear that.
It's not a bold statement these days to label Tucker Carlson as a racist, but after his gross attacks on Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson, it's clear we have another instance of the Fox News host taking his personal grievances against people of color too far. So we know that Biden made the historic nomination of Jackson after Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement. And during the Biden campaign, he had promised to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court. This was not just a decision that mirrored his overall inclusive candidacy, but also perhaps a nod to his mistreatment of Anita Hill during Clarence Thomas's Supreme Court hearings way back when. For context, he was chair of the Senate Judiciary, and it's worth looking into just what happened if you were too young. But let's just say Biden did not treat Anita Hill, a black woman and lawyer herself, very respectfully. Jackson is a highly respected legal mind and is currently a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. If confirmed, she would be the first black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. She went to Harvard Law, where she graduated magna cum laude and was the editor of the Harvard Law Review. You'd think those credentials would speak for themselves, but to someone like Tucker Carlson, who over the years has been obsessed with different markers of elitism, like various Ivy League educations, they still aren't enough. He is now demanding to see her LSAT score. He said, "How did she do on the LSATs? Why wouldn't you tell us that? That would settle the question conclusively as to whether she's a once-in-a-generation legal talent." Carlson had previously complained that Jackson was picked, quote, on the basis of appearance.
The single most important appointed position in the entire government, and announce in public that you were filling that position on the basis of appearance, not on the basis of skill or wisdom or fealty to the founding documents of the United States, but on the basis of the way the person looks. So it's not a question of saying, we found the most qualified person who happens to look this way. What you're saying is, we found a person who looks this way, who, by the way, may be qualified.
Of course, the internet was ablaze with people calling out the racism of Carlson's segment, taking someone who has worked their entire life and been profoundly successful and making it seem as if they just got lucky. Of course, he never ventured into this territory with any of the recent Republican-backed court nominees. And just for some background, in the legal field, apparently it's rare, if not taboo, to ask about LSAT scores. Richard Signorelli, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, said that in his long career, he was never asked for his LSAT score by any employer. Nicole Hannah-Jones honed in on the issue and put it quite simply and powerfully. The presumption that black people are dumb is standard white supremacy. Thanks so much for watching. You can follow me on all platforms at Caro Johnson 917.
We were told by Dems in the media that police were overwhelmingly targeting unarmed black males, when actually it was the criminals they let out who were doing most of the targeting. And data shows police were less likely to use lethal force against black than white suspects. Of course, the professor behind the study was canceled faster than Chris Wallace's corporate credit card. Good for you. I can't help it.
I'm trying to fight that one.
I know, I can't. I'm a jerk.
That was Greg Gutfeld. What he said wasn't funny. Conservatives aren't funny. I got coworkers, colleagues, peers. I don't know what to call fellow TYT content creators here that I work with, but not really. But several of them are comedians and they know much more about jokes than I do. Anyways, I guess for Gutfeld, part of the setup of the joke was that the left exclusively cancels people and the left canceled this black man whose study shows that police are more likely to shoot white people because the left doesn't want the truth to be exposed about how the police aren't racist, you race baiters. With the punchline being, by canceled, Gutfeld means a study entitled An Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force, which was critiqued and peer-reviewed. Studies are supposed to be, and the glaring issues with the study weren't as highly publicized as the study itself. And by the professor, Gutfeld means economics professor at Harvard University, Roland Fryer, a brother, who published this working paper which found that there was no evidence of racial bias in police shootings. From his analysis of shootings occurring from 2005 to 2015, mostly in Houston and a few other cities, Black and Hispanic people were no more likely to be shot relative to white people. So Roland Fryer went to Beyonce's city and got media attention on Beyonce's internet with flawed data using questionable methods to get it. Well, community activists called out the study for not including input from them, Houston residents, about their interactions with police and for relying only on police reports. As you can imagine, the vast majority of police killings in H-Town were deemed justified by the cops. And in a blog post challenging Fryer's study, Justin Feldman pointed out that, among other things, trying to control for those that were either arrested or shot by police are kind of two different groups to begin with. But police describing suspects as violently resisting arrests needed to be examined. I mean, even I would like to see what the data would suggest if those same people were pulled over or stopped by police in Black communities instead of predominantly white neighborhoods. No matter how you look at it, Black people are disproportionately negatively impacted by law enforcement in America. Non-lethal police brutality, no one questions this. Not attacking when killed, not attacking when killed and not killed by rifle or shotgun. It's usually at this point where conservatives say, well, all of this is because so many police interactions, not funnily, as if Black people's increased encounters with law enforcement are due to committing crime. But no. As I've talked about before, the largest ever study of alleged racial profiling during traffic stops has found that Black people who are pulled over more frequently than white people by day are much less likely to be stopped after sunset when a veil of darkness masks their race. All police interactions aren't created equal. It just gets weird when people use markers for structural racism like over-policing Black neighborhoods and unjustified police stops on low-level and fallacious offenses while discriminating against Black people to explain another marker for structural racism in policing, fatal police encounters. And that's on Simpson's paradox. Now, Feldman went on to say, there is never going to be the perfect study because there is no objective evidence of what happens during each encounter. And Fryer himself concluded, what I hope this paper leads to is a desire for more and better data that we can use to continue to ask questions and understand the role of race in police-civilian interactions. Lastly, Gutfeld and conservatives aren't funny. For Rebel HQ, I'm Jeff Wiggins. My architect knows Japanese. For more from the Young Turks, stay right here. If you want to see content from yours truly, click on the hashtag below. I can also be found on all socials at He Gon' Be Alright. Thanks for watching.